Shannon Sharpe in tears reacting to Cowboys' Marshawn Kneeland passing away at age 24. You never really know what someone is going through. Even when they smile, even when the lights are bright and the cheers are loud, pain can hide behind everything. Sometimes the strongest people carry the heaviest burdens, and no one ever sees the cracks until it's too late. When I first read the headline, I froze. Cowboys defensive end Marshawn Kneeland dead at 24. The words didn't make sense. They couldn't. He had just made his mark, scored his first touchdown, celebrated with teammates, and looked unstoppable. And yet, within days, the story changed from victory to tragedy. This isn't just about football. It's about the human heart, the unseen battles, and the cost of silence. We celebrate success, we cheer the highlights, but we rarely ask, "Are you okay?" Behind every athlete's strength, there's still a person, vulnerable, fragile, and human. Today, I want to talk about Marshawn Kneeland, not as a player on a roster, but as a soul who left a message behind. A message about pain, about loss, and about the importance of being seen before it's too late. When the news broke, it shook the entire NFL community. Reports revealed that Marshawn Kneeland had died in a tragic incident following a police chase, suspected to be suicide. It didn't sound real. It sounded like the kind of story you wish was a rumor. Just hours earlier, he was being praised for his energy, his leadership, and his potential. Coaches spoke highly of him, teammates admired his discipline, and fans were starting to learn his name. To the outside world, Marshon was climbing, but on the inside, something unseen was pulling him down. The Broncos held a moment of silence. Across stadiums, players knelt in prayer. Broadcasters spoke with trembling voices. Even rivals paused to honor him, because grief doesn't wear team colors. What made it harder was his age, 24. 24 isn't supposed to be an ending. It's supposed to be the beginning of everything. His career, his dreams, his family's pride, all frozen in one devastating moment. And somewhere, behind that headline, there was a mother who had already buried her own pain once before. She passed away just a year earlier. Maybe that grief never left him. Maybe the silence became too loud. No one will ever fully know what he carried inside, only that it was heavy enough to take him away. Before we talk about the tragedy, we must remember the man. Marshawn Kneeland wasn't just a defensive end. He was a story of perseverance. Born and raised with humble roots, he learned early that success is built, not given. He wasn't the loudest in the room. He was the worker, the grinder, the one who stayed late and came early. Coaches called him coachable. Teammates called him solid. Fans called him promising. But the people closest to him called him kind. He had a laugh that filled the locker room, and a focus that impressed veterans twice his age. He once said in an interview, "I just want to make my family proud." That line hits differently now. In his short career, he had already started carving his legacy. His first touchdown wasn't just a score, it was a symbol, the payoff for years of dedication, pain, and patience. And yet, behind that celebration, maybe there was a quiet question he couldn't answer. We often forget that athletes are people before they're performers. They feel pressure. They fear failure. They have heartbreaks, losses, and moments where they can't breathe beneath the weight of expectation. Marshawn Kneeland was more than a cowboy. He was a dreamer. One of us, chasing light in a world that sometimes feels unbearably dark. When word spread through locker rooms, phones stopped buzzing. Text messages turned into tears. Players who had never met him still felt the sting because they saw themselves in him, young, hopeful, and carrying invisible battles. Dak Prescott, his teammate, spoke from the heart. "It hurts heavy today. I hurt for Marshon, for his family, for everyone who loved him." Around the league, tributes poured in. A game paused in silence. Helmets bore his initials. Commentators struggled to keep composure. The entire sports world, for once, moved slower. We often treat athletes like they're invincible. But when one falls, it's a reminder. Beneath the pads and the fame, they bleed, they cry, they break. Fans on social media shared memories, clips, and prayers. Strangers came together in collective mourning. Because grief, in moments like this, doesn't need a jersey, it just needs a heart. For a brief time, the noise of competition faded, and what remained was humanity. Raw, fragile, united in loss. When I heard Shannon Sharpe break down on air, it wasn't just his tears. It was the truth behind them. He said what many of us feel but rarely admit. You never know what someone's fighting. That line echoed in my head for hours. Because I've been there. Not in the same way, but close enough to understand. The kind of exhaustion that sleep can't fix. The kind of pain you smile through because you don't want to explain it. Sometimes success can be the loneliest place in the world. When you're expected to be strong every single day, you forget how to ask for help. And the world applauds your toughness, not realizing it's killing you inside. When I look at Marshon's story, I don't just see an athlete, I see a mirror. I see a generation of people pretending to be okay because they don't want to burden anyone else. We all post smiles, share wins, and hide the rest, but pain ignored doesn't disappear. It just buries deeper, waiting for a moment of weakness. And when that moment comes, it can be fatal. That's why stories like Marshon's matter. They remind us that reaching out isn't weakness, it's survival. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply say, "I'm not okay." Depression doesn't always look like sadness. Sometimes it looks like success, discipline, and focus. It looks like the guy who jokes with teammates, then goes home and stares at the ceiling in silence. For Marshon, the signs may have been small. A mood, a silence, a distance. Maybe he brushed it off. Maybe others did too. But pain doesn't need permission to grow. It waits quietly, feeding on isolation. Mental health in sports has long been the unspoken opponent. Players are trained to fight, to endure, to push through anything. But how do you tackle what lives inside your own head? How do you bench something that whispers, "You're not enough"? Even the greats have broken under that weight. Dak Prescott lost his brother the same way. Brandon Marshall, Calvin Ridley, countless athletes, all have spoken about the darkness that hides behind glory. Marshon's story isn't an isolated tragedy. It's part of a much bigger conversation, one that demands empathy, not judgment. We need to normalize help. We need to check on our strong friends, our quiet coworkers, our driven teammates. Because those are often the ones standing closest to the edge. If you take anything from his story, let it be this. Don't wait until it's too late to care. Ask the hard questions, listen to the quiet ones, and never assume that a smile means peace. Every tragedy leaves behind a circle of pain. A father, wondering what he could have said. A teammate, replaying the last conversation. A fan, feeling emptiness where inspiration once lived. That's the cruel truth. When one life ends, dozens of others fracture. Because love doesn't stop with death. It lingers in guilt, in memory, in endless what-ifs. Parents aren't supposed to bury their children. No coach wants to replace a locker that belonged to a friend. And no teammate should have to play through tears. The hardest part of loss is not knowing why. Why him? Why now? Why didn't anyone see it coming? We may never get those answers. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the real answer lies in what we do next. How we love louder, listen deeper, and treat every heartbeat as sacred. Marshon's death reminds us that time is fragile. That we don't always get another chance to say, "I'm proud of you," or "I'm here for you." So say it now. Mean it now. Marshawn Kneeland's legacy won't be defined by the tragedy of his final day, but by the spirit he showed every day before it. His work ethic, his humility, his energy, that's what people will remember. He proved that greatness isn't measured in years lived, but in lives touched. Even in his passing, he started conversations that needed to happen. Across locker rooms, players began opening up. Across media, commentators spoke about therapy, grief, and vulnerability. He made people talk. And that alone is a legacy of courage. Some lights burn short, but shine bright enough to guide others. Marshon's light is one of those. It may have gone out too soon, but its warmth still lingers. He showed us that it's okay to be human, even in a world that demands perfection. And he reminded us that behind every helmet, there's a heart that beats, breaks, and believes. His journey didn't end in darkness. It transformed into a message, a call for compassion, awareness, and love. So what do we learn from this? That success doesn't equal peace. That mental battles are invisible, but deadly. That strength is not silence. If you're listening to this right now and you've ever felt the weight of loneliness, know this: you're not alone. You don't have to fight in silence. You don't have to carry it all. Reach out. Talk to someone, a friend, a counselor, a teammate, anyone who will just listen. And if you know someone who seems distant, don't assume they're fine. Ask again. Listen twice. Sometimes one conversation can change a life. Marshon's passing broke hearts, but it also opened eyes. It reminded us that empathy isn't optional, it's essential. It taught us that life is fragile, unpredictable, and precious beyond measure. So let's live differently. Let's speak kinder. Let's be the reason someone decides to stay another day. The world doesn't need more perfection. It needs more presence. Be there for people. Be real. Because sometimes your words might be the light that keeps someone alive. To Marshawn Kneeland, you were more than an athlete. You were proof that resilience can come wrapped in gentleness. You fought hard, you loved deeply, and though your time was short, your impact was vast. You reminded the world that pain hides in plain sight, that even heroes need saving, that it's okay to ask for help. Your story will live in every player who learns to open up, in every fan who reaches out, in every conversation that starts with, "Are you really okay?" You were a son, a teammate, a friend, and a fighter. Your spirit lives in every person brave enough to face their own demons and choose life. We wish you peace, the kind of peace you deserved all along. Your light didn't fade, it spread. And through that light, others will find their way. Rest easy, Marshon. You ran your race. You gave your heart. And now, your name stands as a reminder that love, empathy, and humanity matter more than any scoreboard.